Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today's episode is all about sequels because they've been dominating the headlines lately. The first is a story that broke yesterday, and that's Guillermo del Toro is already talking about Pacific Rim 2. He says it'll take place a few years later, and it will give them a chance to not only develop a video game, but to tell a sequel comic book. As you know, a prequel comic book just came out recently, written by the screenwriter. And that's all wonderful and fantastic, but of course it was tempered by the studio that said, Legendary, which said, well, you know, we're glad Guillermo's very excited for a sequel, but we have to see what the box office is. And I don't know, I mean, I've said this in a couple of videos now, that I feel this is becoming a common technique, a PR technique in Hollywood, and that they talk about the sequel before the first movie comes out or the next installment, because they want to be like, oh, this is going to move on with or without you, you better get on board, isn't this going to be exciting? We're so excited about it that we're willing to, you know, build a franchise because franchises are doing so well these days. And you know what? At first I was like, okay, this is a valid PR technique, but now I'm starting to feel like a little bit like manipulated. It's like kind of like I would liken it to the talk shows, you know, late night talk shows. Eventually, you know, people wised up and they were like, wait a minute, you guys are doing pre-interviews and you know you're only talking about what you know the actor wants to talk about. This is totally canned, and I'm not buying it. And I think that's one of the reasons that late night talk shows. I'm sure there are other reasons, but I feel that's a factor in why they aren't quite as popular anymore. And I feel audiences are also starting to wise up to publicity tricks. So I actually think that they should hold off on announcing these sequels until they have a definitive box office reason to mention them. And then you can just get a second wave of interest for your film. It still all works out. But there is sometimes, you know, an exception to the rule, or, you know, you can understand what people are doing, and that's for the second story of the day. And some of you asked me to talk about this, and that's that Sony has nailed down 2 more dates for Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4, 2016 and then 2018. So the reason they're doing this, for this one, I feel it's not so much publicity, I'm sure that factors in, but they have to lock these dates down. You might have noticed that Disney just locked down a ton of dates about last week, including 2 for Marvel. And so the thing is that a few of those dates were the first weekend in May, which is really the best time to release a movie. It's become like like almost a sure thing. You really want to get in there first. You want to set the tone for the summer, and also you want to kick off the summer. People really want to come into theaters, and Marvel has been really dominating that, getting that slot. You know, pulling down the first weekend in May. So with at least and Sony couldn't get it for 2016 because it's already been claimed, but they did get it for 2018. So what you're seeing there is really Sony making sure they get in there and reserve these dates insanely early, by the way. And then you're seeing news reports pick up on it. And also, you know, so Sony did release a press release, I guess, but that's more of a business angle than this kind of like, I think the Pacific Rim 2 is a little bit more PR, and I think Sony's Spider-Man story is a little bit more nailing down the dates. But you know, they do dates so early, they're not going to be able to meet them sometimes. I mean, let's not forget the infamous 2015 Justice League claim, which I mean, they're saying it's still going to happen, but I don't know. I mean, they'd have to be almost shooting it now, or at least casting it now. But maybe we'll start to hear things soon. But so Hollywood, get your dates, but don't be married to them at the expense of the quality of the content. All right, but now for some bad news for the third story. A sequel has been delayed. Like I just said, sometimes they don't make their dates. And this is Sin City 2. It was just announced that it's been pushed back it was supposed to come out in October of this year to August, late August 2014. And that's a shame. I mean, luckily we haven't seen any previews or really sneak peeks. I think they had a photo of Joseph Gordon-Levitt come out, but I think that it's not exactly on mainstream audiences' radar anyway. So I think they could move it. But it's interesting. Frank Miller. It was mentioned when this was reported that 300 was also just moved back about a year. It was supposed to come out in August 2013 of this year, and now has been pushed back to March of 2014. The March date's pretty good. March movies can do pretty well. That's actually when 300 came out and Watchmen came out, so that could be a very good date for 300. But August is scary. August, you know, that makes me a little nervous about Sin City 2. That's not a great time to release a movie. That's kind of like where movies. That's like like Cannonball Run for movies. It's they could either really do well or they might just totally bomb and die. It's kind of where Hollywood's like, it might be a surprise hit. Let's release it in August and see what happens. And they said for that reason, when they mentioned the other movies coming out in August 2014, the first one they said was Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was like, ooh, a Marvel movie in August, scary. And the other movies coming out, they also mentioned Expendables 3, which is always opened in August and is a perfect example of a movie that could either do really well or really poorly, kind of walking that maverick line. So those are the 3 news stories of the day. What do you think of all these crazy dates? Just to recap, you've got Pacific Rim 2 may or may not be happening in sometime in the near future with a video game and a sequel comic book, at least Guillermo del Toro is hoping. You've got Amazing Spider-Man nailing down a 3rd and 4th film release dates, 2016 and then in 2018 to get that first weekend in May. And then for the Sin City, it's been pushed back. So instead of an October 2013 release date, it's going to come out in August. Scary, as I said, August 2014. All right, so to answer some questions, one person said, yesterday I talked about Queen of the Tearling with Emma Watson, and then it was being billed by Warner Brothers as a Game of the Thrones type story. And this person said, I don't have HBO, and I'm not in on this Game of Thrones thing, but why does everyone reference Game of Thrones? There are plenty of popular television shows. And I would say, yes and no. Sure, there are plenty of popular television shows, but nothing has quite captured, the fanboy attention like Game of Thrones. And I think it's been able to bleed beyond that. Game of Thrones, these days, because of cable television and the internet, television shows don't get the huge numbers they used to. Like back in the day, almost 20 million people would watch an episode of Friends. And that's not the case anymore. You just don't have that kind of concentrated audience. Sometimes you do for shows like American Idol in its heyday, and I think these singing shows do very well. And also the Big Bang Theory, but it's tough. It's a tough arena. But Game of Thrones, through its illegal downloading and its reruns on demand, on HBO on demand and stuff like that, and its original air date, it really pulls in a ton of people. It's breaking records. It's one of the top watched shows on HBO. And also, there's something that the media does, and that they kind of they rank shows and basically like fanboy movies and shows. They put it all in one section, and they rate fan engagement. Like how many people tweet about it, how many people want to look about it for want to see a recap, how many people are on fan sites. And I believe that Game of Thrones is has the most engagement of anything. Like we're talking like above Harry Potter and Star Wars, and that's just amazing. And I think the reason that is actually, and one of the reasons I think people are so happy about it and why I'm happy about it, is Game of Thrones is so successful. I think some people write it off as, it's a fantasy, it's got dragons, or it has lots of sex and nudity. I've heard about you, Game of Thrones. And while it does have all those things, and they're awesome, I think that the main reason that show is so beloved is its quality. That is a quality show, and kudos to David Benioff, I believe his name is, and D.B. Weiss, who are not only the producers but the writers of the show, and they write pretty much, I believe actually every episode. And that's why you have such a great, consistent through line of quality. And of course it has an amazing cast. But that's why everyone talks about Game of Thrones. And also you might recall, I missed the boat on the Red Wedding. I watched it, but I wasn't doing TV recaps at that point. I'm considering maybe doing them going forward for, maybe some other big shows. We'll see. But Red Wedding, you can see like that just did huge traffic. Anybody who covered it on YouTube got a ton of views. People just wanted to hear what everyone had to say about it, and that's why Game of Thrones is really registering a lot. My last comment today is that I saw. Oh, that was a bug. Sorry. I saw some people who were like, "Brush your hair" yesterday on the World War Z review, and I have to just say a comment about this because I have to tell you, I tried very hard with my hair. It was raining, it was humid, and that's the main problem. We are entering a humid period of time here in New York City. I have naturally curly hair, and even when I have it blown out for my audience, in my opens that I shoot on Monday, I have my hair blown out for that. But I'm trying to do it myself during the week. Sometimes you can see it goes better than others, but I'm just letting you know that humidity is nobody's friend, and so I'm sure a lot of you have been there as well. All right, but I'm glad you're still enjoying the quality of the content, and it's nice to change things up. You don't want me to have the same hairstyle all the time, right? Okay, so thanks for watching Morning Movie News. Write down below any questions you might have that you want to see answered tomorrow, and any stories you want covered. Okay, bye.